Share, we are online. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Police Accountability Board regular meeting, Wednesday, January 21st, 2026.
Okay. Public notice to access the meeting remotely, join from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device using the URL on the agenda. If you do not wish for your name to appear on the screen, use the drop-down menu and click on Rename to rename yourself to be anonymous. To request to speak, use the raise hand icon on the screen. To join by phone, dial 1-669-900-6833 and enter meeting ID 890-0783-8093. If you wish to comment during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 and wait to be recognized. With this being the second meeting of the month, we'd like to bring notice to our line acknowledgement on the second page of the agenda. And Chair, for the record, this meeting is called to order at 6:33 p.m. I can now proceed with the roll call. Chair Cayetano here. Vice Chair Wilson is currently absent. Board Member Calavita here. Board Member Lethbridge
Here.
Board Member Boswell-Charcot
Here.
and Board Member Wells is also absent. Chair, at this time, we do have a quorum. The majority of, or the number of votes needed to take action will be 4 votes tonight. And then on behalf of the ODPA, we have Director Aguilar, Data Analyst Mendy, Investigator Weinberg, and myself, Policy Analyst Murillo. On behalf of the BP, we have Lieutenant Coates joining us here in person, as well as Deputy Chief Tate joining us remotely. And with that, Chair, we have a quorum. And that concludes our attendance.
Okay, thanks, Analyst Murillo. Welcome back, everyone. Let's go to agenda item 2, approval of the agenda. I actually would like to move item 9 to below 9B. That's okay, everyone.
What was that?
On our agenda, I would like to move 9B to after the discussion of the case.
Okay.
Unless there's an objection, there are some, there's some overlap.
That's
in the
fine.
subject matter.
I just can hear.
Okay.
Chair, just an update, if you want to consider, for 9B, we had invited our colleagues from the budget office, they are able to come, just not today, and we wanted to see if we could move the short to the plans already.
Okay. So, my motion will be to approve the agenda with those 2 modifications that I stated and the director stated.
Okay, and just to recap, that would be to move item 9G to be item 9C, or the third item under the discussion action items, and table item 9D.
I'll second that motion.
And for the record, Vice Chair Wilson has arrived. Is there any objection to the motion to approve the agenda with the modification of moving item 9G to be item 9C and tabling item 9D? Seeing or hearing none, the motion carries.
Yeah, Greg, let's go to public comment. Agenda item 3.
Okay, as a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but may be allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. As always, we'll start with those physically present first before moving on to our virtual attendees. At this time, we don't have any physically present speakers. I do see 3 hands raised from our virtual attendees. So now proceed. Janice, you've been granted permission to speak. 3 minutes are up on the screen when you're ready.
Thank you very much. My name is Janice Schroeder, and it is with great respect and deep appreciation that I thank Director Aguilar and PAB members for your very, very crucial work. I strongly oppose the proposal to reinstate the use of tear gas, smoke, and pepper spray, and I strongly support the adoption of PAB 9B proposal. I also oppose a weakened use of force policy amendment, but I support the PAB director and the PAB's amendment recommendations in the use of force policy, PAB 9F. As well, I oppose the proposed changes to the police equipment and safety ordinance, which is on the Tuesday, January 27th City Council agenda, item 21. I urge the council to adopt the PAB draft ordinance revision with red line changes in the supplemental agenda packet. And finally, I oppose the BPD plan for more drone surveillance and flock camera license readers. The implementation of the BPD plan and City Council proposals I see as both dangerous and regressive. Their adoption puts community members at serious risk for abuse and loss of their privacy rights. And again, I thank each of you for your hard work.
Thank you. Okay, Wendy Alston, you've been granted permission to speak. And 3 minutes are up on the screen. Wendy?
My name is Marilyn Cleveland. I'm sorry, I have the wrong name up there, but I am a resident of Berkeley and a member of the Berkeley Friends Meeting Racial Justice Action Team. I understand that item 9B has been tabled, but I do urge the PAB to oppose the proposal reinstating the use of tear gas, smoke, and pepper spray, and to support Member Wilson's proposal for item 9B. For item 9F, I urge the board to support a strengthened use of force policy and to oppose an amendment weakening the use of force policy. And for item 9G, which I understand has been moved to item 9B, I urge the board to oppose the council rescinding the police equipment and safety ordinance on the council's January 27 agenda. Reportable deployment only for deployment in First Amendment activity is much narrower than the current ordinance. It weakens police accountability and transparency, which are vital in Berkeley. It also removes displaying and brandishing such equipment, military equipment, from reportable actions. And both of those the narrowing of this ordinance would be very detrimental to the work of this board and to protections now available within the city of Berkeley. Thank you very much for considering these comments.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, John Z. Pullen, you've been granted permission to speak. 3 minutes are on the screen.
Thank you so much. I'm John Lindsay Poland with the American Friends Service Committee. I mostly wanted to speak to item 9G, now moved to 9B or C. And I did send some edits to the proposed letter to a couple of the board members. I know it can be challenging to edit from the dais, but I wanted to point out a couple things. One is just a small thing that we did not co-write the state law. We did support it, but I think there's a couple things in here that could actually lead to greater confusion. And I want to be sure that the letter that goes to the council, is solid. One of those is that there's a reference here to automatic weapons. The firearms owned by Berkeley PD principally are semi-automatic weapons. So the Colt M4s are assault rifles. They are not automatic, they're semi-automatic. The state law makes a reference to assault rifles as defined in the state law, as defined by the California ban on assault rifles. And that is the better definition of the type of equipment that should be regulated and whose use should be reported. I also there's a paragraph here that I find very confusing around reporting based on the use of force policy. I know the department often claims that they're already reporting use of these weapons under the use of force policy, but of course that does not include deployment, and it's really kind of a separate issue. Reporting is required by AB 481. And I think one of the points to make here is that the department has failed in a number of ways to fully report as required by AB 481. I do appreciate the point in this letter that the department should combine reporting under its local ordinance and the state law. I would offer an example of how Oakland does that, not just to assert it, but there's a good example of it. Um, and finally, I also think that the less lethal weapons, as there's a paragraph here that refers to less lethal weapons, and there's actually a better definition again in the state law as well as the existing ordinance. And so I just wonder about creating new definitions or categories for these weapons that are already regulated by state law and the ordinance. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And we have our last speaker, Barb Atwell. You've been granted permission to speak. 3 minutes are on the screen.
Thank you so much. My name is Barb Atwell. I'm a Berkeley resident and a member of the Berkeley Friends meeting. I just wanted to mention that the Berkeley Friends meeting commends the PAB and the DPA for their research, analysis, and policymaking, preparing the council and recommended positions, but accompanied by fully drafted policy and ordinance language for adoption and implementation. I do so appreciate John's edits. I think they're very valid, and I hope you guys will take the time to review them. So we are in support of the adoption of the agenda items 9B, 9F, and 9G. And I know they've changed since we started, but 9B we oppose the proposal of reinstituting use of tear gas, smoke, and OC pepper spray, and support the adoption of PAB 9B. The 9F, strengthen and opposing a weakened use of force policy amendment, support the adoption of the DPA-PAB amendment recommendation in use of force policy. And lastly, the PAB 9G, which is now, I think, 9B, oppose the proposed changes to the police equipment and safety ordinance. And that's on the council agenda at number 21 on Tuesday, the 27th. We recommend that the council adoption of PAB draft ordinance revisions with red line changes in the supplemental agenda packet. I appreciate your efforts and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And with that, Chair, that was our last speaker.
Okay. Thank you all for commenting and for your participation in our meeting today. We will go now to agenda item 4, approval of the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes. I'll second.
Are there any objections to the motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 7th? Seeing or hearing none, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to agenda item 5, 5, auditor staff report.
Mr. Chair, members, colleagues, members of the public, thank you for joining us. We wanted to provide some quick updates as a follow-up from last discussion, and for just stated today, we had reached out to our colleagues at the budget office. We're in budget season, so we're having those conversations. Everybody in the city, the mayor has, and the budget committee has, the council's budget committee has requested that all the department heads propose a 10% reduction to their budget, so we're actively looking at ways to do that. We've also been notified preliminarily that our hiring freeze is expected to continue to this cycle, so that means we will have to start from that baseline budget, which we're We're assessing what the impact will be and how we can navigate that. Also wanted to provide some NACOL updates. There are a series of webinars that have been notified, have an update on the website. There's a one happening next week, which is a very timely discussion. Bless you. It's called Immigration Detention, Oversight Forgotten Space. That'll be on Tuesday, January 27th, from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, we'll follow up with the board members, with this information, we'll put it in minutes. It is available in the NACOL website, webinar website. Another one that's been announced is why and how more stringent foot pursuit policies might reduce community harm. That's on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And there's Beyond Washington, local civilian oversight of police without DOJ intervention. That's in March 11th, from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And the last one that's been noticed is lies, and statistics. How you may be misled with statistics of flawed research. That's on Wednesday, April 1st at from 2 to 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, community members or oversight practitioners have an opportunity to participate in committees. Our office has been participating. We got 2 of our office members have been appointed to committees. I'll let our analyst talk about his appointment in his committee.
Yeah, so this year I was appointed to serve on the annual conference committee. This committee is essentially the group that plans and coordinates and just oversees the development of the programming for the annual NACOL conferences. The committee is currently led by Edward Harness, which is the Inspector General for Louisville, Kentucky, where NACOL is going to take place this year, and Bonco Sakundi, who is the Director of Fort Worth, Texas, Office of Police Monitoring. We held our first meeting. Pardon?
Sorry,
Bonseal, sorry, my apologies. A couple of weeks ago, we had our first meeting where we essentially discussed the upcoming timelines. If any board member or even community members of the general oversight community are interested in submitting proposals for potential discussion topics at the conference, those dates would actually be opening in the next couple of weeks to start the submission, and they'll go through mid-March for those submissions to be completed. The official deadlines are still being drafted up, but that's sort of the general timeline that we have, with the NACOL registration being anticipated to open sometime in May. So that was the topic of the first discussion, and I look forward to continuing working with this committee and provide additional information to the board as we get closer to the annual NACOL conference.
Thank you. And I've been reappointed to the Membership Support and Development Committee. That committee was chaired last year by Edward Harris, but this year it's our new NACOL member, Yohaira Alvarez, who's out of New York. She is the current chief of staff with the NYC Civilian Complaint Review Board. In our Membership Support and Development Committee, we support current individual and organizational members to increase the total of the members. We often get tapped in by nearby jurisdictions where they need support and invited to talk to their groups. So we're continuing that. And last year, one of the things we started doing more concerted outreach to students. That's something that NACOL has had, but has not been able to successfully do. But I know New York has a really engaging process for youth. So I'm excited for your higher leadership in that membership committee. So it will keep you updated on any of the work coming down here. Those are the immediate updates that I wanted to provide, but if the board has any questions, concerns, we can address that.
Any questions for the director's office? And thanks, Director. No questions, let's proceed. Very good, then, thank you both very much. Okay, we'll go to agenda item 6, which is the Chief of Police's report.
Chair and board
Oh, sorry. Agenda item 6, sharing board member, sorry, Deputy Chief Tate, wait a second. I do not have any reports. Does any board member have anything to report? Can you share? Okay, well then we can kick it to you, Deputy Chief Tate.
Awesome, thank you. Good evening, Chair and board members. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to give the Chief's update tonight. Starting off with a cold case arrest in a multi-jurisdictional kidnapping sexual assault case. Back on January 13th, we arrested an individual in Richmond, Texas, in connection with a series of kidnappings and sexual assaults that were committed between 1994 and 2008 across 4 jurisdictions. Those crimes involved 7 known victims, with most instances involving physical assaults or threats with a firearm. The case advanced through DNA testing of previously untested sexual assault kits beginning in 2015, and that linked multiple cases. Additional cold case investigation was supported through 2020 and 2021 through the U.S. Department of Justice grant. And those investigations across California and Texas agencies were consolidated under our case. A familial DNA search supported by the California Department of Justice and the FBI ultimately identified the suspect and led to the issuance of the arrest warrant. He was taken into custody without incident, and that concluded a decades-long investigation. Later that same day, patrol officers conducted a traffic stop in South Berkeley, and that resulted in the arrest of a prohibited person found in possession of methamphetamines, ecstasy, marijuana, cash, and an airsoft pistol, as well as an expandable baton, as well as a list of drug transactions. So that proactive police work resulted in the removal of illegal drugs and weapons from our community. Talking about community engagement, I wanted to point out that, as many of you already know, that we had a meeting last Thursday at the community meeting last Thursday at the Public Safety Building, and that talked about public safety technologies, including ALPRs, PTZ cameras, drone programs, both DFR as well as SRT, and then community video feeds. So I wanted to thank board members Wells and Calavita for being there, as well as Director Aguilar and other members of the ODPA. We had a strong turnout as well as media coverage, and the primary concerns that were raised by residents was how we prevent data sharing with federal agencies. Certainly reassured the room that state law and local ordinance, as well as current policy, provide strict safeguards against this. It is our intention of publishing all the questions and answers on our website that'll give a summary for all of those to reiterate those points. In addition to other community events, several members of the department participated in Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Day of service earlier this week. And we also did some of the shoreline cleanup, which was a great event. And then also I wanted to point out that Coffee with the Cop is coming up for next week. Highlighting our early intervention system, giving an update on that. The First Sign early intervention system, Benchmark Analytics, has completed the initial configuration of their predictive model for our department. We're currently evaluating the model to ensure its risk scoring and pattern identification to make sure that they align with our department standards before initiating any plans for further rollout and testing. And then any policy updates that would be appropriate would be further down the road. Staffing update, we are currently at 154 of 181 officers. We have 5 officers in backgrounds with other agencies, unfortunately, and a couple have already left. And then we have 9 officers currently in the academy, with graduation scheduled anywhere between February and July. We have 23 of 36 public safety dispatchers, three new hires that started January 20th, which is exciting for us. And then we have 3 of those folks attending an academy in February. Earlier this month, the chief shared the department's 2026 initiatives, or the strategic priorities. The priorities built on the foundation that we had last year were a focus centered on professional development and recruitment and communication. So that work resulted in expanded wellness initiatives, demonstrated operational benefits from technology investments, and the successful expansion of our community service officers program into patrol assignments, as well as strengthening our recruiting pipeline. So for 2026, we're evolving that foundation in response to current staffing realities. And the priorities of focus are going to be on deploying our folks more thoughtfully and investing in our workforce, as well as strengthening the way we deliver service to the community. So that it's not about doing more with less, but about doing the right work with the right support. So with that, sort of the highlight is crime response, prevention and investigative effectiveness, community vitality and business district safety, strategic resource staffing and allocation, and workforce stability. So these priorities will be intentionally realistic, measurable, and grounded in care for both the employees and the community. So those are all the updates I have. Are there any questions?
Could you just repeat the 2026 goals?
Absolutely. So crime response, prevention, and investigative effectiveness. So that's talking about aligning staffing, deployment, and technology with real-time crime trends to improve our response times, investigative outcomes, and prevention efforts. And then community vitality and business district safety. That'll focus on supporting the community so that they feel safe, welcoming, and economically viable through visible presence, proactive engagement, and problem solving. And then strategic resource and staffing allocation. So that'll be a restructuring and deploying existing resources in a way that better matches the demand and workforce capacity. And that'll include patrol support functions, traffic enforcement and communications. And then workforce stability is the last one. And that'll continue to strengthen recruitment, retention, professional development, and wellness to support healthy and engaged workforce over a long term.
Any questions from board members?
Are those going to be published somewhere?
Happy to share them.
Okay.
Well, we shared them with our staff, but I'm happy to share them. Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Tate. Yes, I'm concerned about the expanded surveillance network in Berkeley, given the national context that we see unfolding with ICE enforcement. And I'm wondering if the department has been studying how you would respond if you receive a warrant from, especially from federal agencies, for the data that's collected with these surveillance systems, just a regular warrant or a FISA warrant. The FISA warrants are especially concerning because they're so secret. And if Flock were to receive, or any surveillance platform were to receive a FISA warrant, it would be secret, and they would be required to share data gathered in Berkeley, and Berkeley would not even know about having had that data shared. So I'm wondering if the department has studied at all how to respond to such warrants, even just a normal warrant, let alone a FISA warrant, without compromising privacy and the security of our data, because it seems an odd time to be gathering more surveillance data on people since crime is down all across the country, including Berkeley already. And given this concern that people have about federal enforcement. So the question is the department taking these warrant situations seriously and trying to figure out ways to respond?
Absolutely. So I appreciated the question coming up at the community meeting, and that's certainly something that we plan to share out on our website in the question answer section. I think as we have talked about this, any warrant that came in would have to be vetted in the way that we've already established it, which would be in consultation with the city attorney's office. And it would not be a decision made in a vacuum as to whether or not there was a legally permissible reason for us to share the information. That being said, with the FISA warrants, we completely understand that there's that question out there, and our position, at least as our contract is right now, is that this is our data, and the FISA, while it operates in a classified content, we don't provide bulk access to our systems, and in our contract with Flock, we own that data, and we have to be made aware of any warrant or any request for access, and that it's not something that would go through Flock. It would be something that goes through our agency in consultation with our city attorney's office.
I have a couple questions that we should say. If I know that the item for the tear gas and the pepper spray is coming from a council member, but I haven't really had the opportunity to ask what the department's position is. I don't want to assume what your position is, but I think there were some interesting, notes in the item about the limited times in the past 10 to 15 years where it has been used and the context that it has been used. And there's an open question that we'll probably discuss about, whether it's even necessary, given the limited uses in the past. And so I'm wondering if you could speak to your understanding of when you would be using either pepper spray or tear gas and in what situations. And if the department has a position on the item that is coming before council so that we can consider that during our discussion.
So we do, and we anticipate being at the meeting next week to share our perspective on that. Generally, while tear gas isn't a routine thing that is used, it is certainly something that when you consider a large-scale disorder or there's an immediate threat to life or serious injury, it is a tool that right now we don't have access to. So there are also, as we talk about, the use of it for SWAT operations, it is certainly something that is a limiting factor if you have a barricaded subject who's not coming out. I know that I think it was one time with the use of SRT in the past. So that being said, we feel that it is more of a last resort option, as you can see, but something that is important for us to consider turning back on.
And do you see a distinction between pepper spray and tear gas? Because your answer speaks to tear gas, but I'm wondering if you also have a different view on pepper spray.
Well, I can tell you my experience with both. There's definitely there's a difference. OC is a tool that officers carry on their belt every day. It is more of a direct one-on-one. This is, it's another tool that you can use to intervene in a situation similar to a baton or a collapsible baton. So that being said, I think that there are differences. I'm not necessarily the subject matter expert to go through all of the details to outline the differences, but with tear gas, it's more of something that would be used in a high-risk situation, where OC is something that could be used on a daily, right?
So prior to 2020, your officers had access to OC spray. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Prior to 2020, you could use OC. The officers carried OC spray on the person who would use them in certain instances.
Yes.
Prior
to 2020, did they have OC spray? Yes, they did.
Yeah, I just want to know, if you could speak to a couple instances when it was used. You've been on the force for 20 years, right? So I just wanted to know, just a specific, maybe even a hypothetical instance when it was used.
Are you talking about for crowd control or for just on the officer's belt to be used in overcoming resistance of someone or in a fight?
Either. I want to know like when it was used and also what else. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm certainly not prepared to talk about the individual uses of it tonight. I'm happy to get back to you on that.
Okay, that's fine. My last question is, so we haven't seen the chief here in the last 2 months, and so I'm wondering if we can expect her to attend at the next meeting.
I believe that is the plan. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks for your time.
And I apologize she's not here tonight. She is at a conference.
That's fine. Yeah, I just there's a lot of important items that are coming up on our calendar, so I want to, and especially when the agenda item comes in. I mean, you might be also there to speak on it, but we would appreciate having her here to speak on it as well.
Understood.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know that. I just wanted to ask you. Okay, let's go to subcommittee reports.
Okay, so we're now on item 8, subcommittee reports. I'll go down the list of our subcommittees to see if there's any report out since the last meeting on January 7th. Starting with regulations.
Since our last meeting on January 7th, we've had 4 regulations meetings. And we will be having 2 more this month. So this month we'll have 6 of these regulations meetings. And it looks like we're coming towards the end of the internal process. Anyway, so that's good. And that's my report.
Okay, policy review subcommittee.
No update.
Metrics and operations.
The update is today's item, the policy manual, and also I will commit to following up on our retreat and kind of putting our goals and related notes in shape for you guys to review with the chair.
Okay, thank you. Outreach and engagement.
No update.
And then the arrest quota prohibition, I know was previously discussed to close, given the update to the FFP policy, so I'll skip that for now. I know last time we tabled it in the absence of board member Wells. I'm not sure.
Let's wait until his.
And policies and practices on academic literacy.
I don't have an update to that.
Okay. Yeah. Any updates from our liaisons or policy reviews?
No. Which committee is our commendations under?
It's under outreach and engagement.
Okay. I guess I would like to hopefully with his permission appoint board member Mitchell Charco to that committee as well.
Accepted.
Great. Can I get a second?
Yeah.
Okay, are there any objections to the motion to add board member Buzzo Perko to the outreach and engagement committee? Seeing or hearing none, we will update the record.
Great, thank you so much.
No.
We with that, we I think we'll be agendizing at our next meeting as well, so.
Okay. So if there are no additional updates, that concludes subcommittee reports.
Okay, let's go to agenda item 9A, which is the election for the positions of chair and vice chair for the 2026 calendar year.
Yes. As board member Paul, not last week's meeting, but last meeting, we started the election process via nominations. Chair Cayetano was nominated to be the chair again, as well as Vice Chair Wilson to the position of vice chair. At today's meeting, we'll open up, or the chair will declare the nomination process reopened. It's an additional nomination process in case anybody else decides to run for either of the 2 positions. If there are other nominees, they'll be granted each nominee will be granted 2 minutes to express the reason for seeking the position, or they may decline the nomination as we did in the previous one. Board members will have the opportunity to pose questions to each candidate, if any, And the presiding chair will call for a roll vote and then announce the winner of the elections. In the case that a board member is the only one running for a position, we can just proceed or request the presiding chair may request or move for a vote to close out the elections via acclamation. So with that said, Chair, if you're ready to open the nomination process.
So I will open the nomination process for vice chair first. Are there any additional, well, let's go with.
Yes. Are there any additional nominations for vice chair position? Again, we need a nomination and the second. And of course, the nominee has to accept it. Once, twice. Okay, in that case, Chair, we could proceed to the chair nominees.
Okay, I will open the nominations for the position of chair.
Okay, are there any additional nominees to the position of chair? Going once, going twice. Okay, I see no motions have been made for additional nominees. Chair, at this time, you may either seek or move for a vote by acclamation to certify the election.
I guess are there any questions from board members before I go to the acclamation round? Is there any objections to going the acclamation round? Okay. I'll move that we appoint the candidate for vice chair and chair of acclamation.
Second that motion?
I think I have the motion, right?
Yes, you may very much.
Okay, I second that.
Okay, I'll proceed with the roll call vote for elections. Board Member Calavita,
Yes.
Board Member Lethbridge.
Yes.
Board Member Bozacharko.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson
Yeah.
and Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay. Thank you all. I wanted to give maybe Vice Chair Wilson a couple minutes if she wants to say anything. If she doesn't, it's fine. It's kind of tradition to maybe say one or two things, but if you don't want to, it's fine. No, after you. Well,
Oh, it was funny. I don't feel particularly articulate today, but thank you for entrusting me to continue in the role. I've really enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with Chair. I think we're a good pair and look forward to seeing what we can do the next year together. So thank you.
okay, great. Yeah, thank you all for your trust in me and Vice Chair Wilson. I do also enjoy working with her and also everyone else on this board and also the director's office. I think that our board is very committed to accountability, transparency, and oversight in Berkeley. And I don't think that core mission is going to change this year. I also think that in the past year, we've been really committed to increasing our relationships within the city. And that's been a personal project of mine to continue to have the board be subject matter experts and expert advisors to the council on matters of public safety and transparency and accountability as well. And I also, we mentioned this at our meeting, but I also have a personal goal of making sure that Berkeley stays a sanctuary city and working with the department on that shared goal. I think that last year we made a lot of great steps in that direction, and this year will present new challenges. So I'm excited I'm grateful that we have partners in that project. So thank you to all the board members and the director's office for our support in that. Okay. Let's go on, unless there's anything else to say there. Great. Yeah, let's go to item 9B, which is the discussion action on the proposed resolution to amend Berkeley City Council's 2020 direction to reinstate BPD's use of tear gas in limited situations and lift the COVID-19 moratorium on the use of smoke and OC spray. I think it says director, but this might be. I'll give it to you first, but if there's nothing that your office has, then I'll give it to the vice chair.
I don't believe we have anything to show.
Okay, let's go to Vice Chair Wilson.
Okay, so included in your packet and pursuant to our discussion of this issue at our last meeting I prepared a draft letter from us to the Public Safety Committee outlining our position on the proposal to reinstate as amended the policy. I do want to thank John Lindsay Owen, that's the correct name? Yeah, thank you. You're listening for your help with the letter. So thank you. The board is asked today to weigh in on the proposed letter, identify any amendments. Hopefully it captures the spirit of our discussion, and then to approve with any amendments as appropriate submission to the Public Safety Committee.
And for the public record, that letter can be found on page 36 of the regular meeting agenda packet.
Are there any comments from board members?
I have a comment.
Yes.
First, thank you very much. I thought the letter was great. My only suggestion, on the second page of the letter, which is at page 37 in our packet, it says that if council decides to reinstate it, that there should be certain requirements. And the second bullet says be confined to clearly defined tactical incidents such as barricaded or hostage situations and exclude civil unrest or First Amendment protected activity without exception. And the only thing I thought it might be worth noting is that council member Kasarwani's resolution was very vague, and the resolution she drafted would have allowed the department to use tear gas when responding to a critical incident that poses a significant threat to public or officer safety, which is very vague. So I thought it might be worth it just to note that, in contrast to her resolution. Okay. But I thought it was a very good letter. Thank you.
Other board member comments?
I agree with board member Lethbridge, especially since, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but when outside agencies, outside jurisdictions come into Berkeley, they're required to abide by Berkeley's policy. And so I think it's especially important to make very precise that wording about civil unrest and crowd control and following up on what board member Lethbridge said. I think it's, since this applies not only to our own department, but to any agencies that come in from outside to offer aid.
Any board member comments?
Otherwise, I think it's an excellent letter. Thank you.
I also thought it was an excellent letter. I just have a couple of really minor things that hopefully add. The first is that after the sentence high risk scenarios in bullet 2, I think it would be worth a footnote or a reference to the specific incident in 2014, where there was, I think, a series of lawsuits that came out of the use of the department's use of tear gas that the city ended up having to settle, I believe.
Bullet 2 where?
Right here on page 36.
It's not a bullet, it's a
So sentence title. It's the section 2. The second sentence in the section high risk scenario ends with high risk scenario. I just think giving the specific example of historically what happened in Berkeley in particular. So because the council may not have that clear of a memory, but I remember I was discussing this with some of the PRC members at the time, that there was actually a PRC review into what happened afterwards. So it also might be great in the footnote to attach the findings that came after that review. I don't know if that's something that you would be open to as a friendly amendment, but that's something that I thought would be beneficial for the council as a kind of a history lesson, honestly. The second thing, it's also a footnote, is you mentioned AB 481 throughout the letter. And I wanted to pair this discussion with the discussion of the council item, which is the proposed rescission of our ordinance. And I think it would be worth noting as well that this would have implications for them based on their decision, mainly that the addition of military equipment in conjunction with the increased or the decreased transparency is not like I would recommend increased transparency if there was a move to reinstate these or to provide these additional military equipment. So I don't know like how it would be phrased exactly, but I think drawing a connection between the ordinance and this proposal would be helpful. The last third recommendation that I had was, I don't know if we could distill the letter is short, it's three pages, but to the extent that there are specific recommendations, if you want to put those in a 1, 2, 3 at the end, I don't know if they can be summarized into a sentence or not. For example, clearly like recommendation 1, like clearly define the necessity of using of I wouldn't say using of I don't know, providing utilizing tear gas in specific situations. I don't know, 1, 2, and 3. To the extent that you can.
Okay, I don't have any philosophical concern. I'm not like thrilled about adding a PRC analysis that was going to happen in 2014 because I want this to be short. But I just think maybe you can draft what you think should be added. That will be easier.
Could it just be a link to the analysis? I mean,
yeah. I'm not like deeply opposed, but I don't want to workshop it here. So maybe if we can get the board to approve in concept the letter as amended by board member Leftwich's comments and whatever you and I come up with in line with what you said here, then we can finalize this offline.
I move that we do that delegation
I'll second.
to accept the letter with the amendments that have been suggested and delegate the chair and vice chair to work together to work for it.
Second that.
okay, we need 4 votes in order to pass the motion, just so there's I know there's a motion in a second, but I just want to make sure that there's no philosophical or like to the extent there are philosophical differences yet they're discussed. But if we're ready to proceed with the vote, let's just go with it.
I would say, and I'm probably going to differ from the rest of the board here. I feel like I agree with having language here that it adheres to the penal code and AB 481, but taking a position as to like questioning the use of it in the future. I would suggest we remove that, but totally understand if I'm outvoted there.
Which part are you referring to?
I would remove the necessity of reinstatement and the first sentence in the conclusion.
Just to clarify that a finding of necessity as articulated in the letter is required by statute before they reenact it. So it's kind of reminding them of that obligation and the fact that it's been used in such a limited manner over the last several decades. You know, it's something they should grapple with when they make their necessity determination. So just want to clarify, that's not something we're making up. It is a statutory requirement.
Is it the case that the necessity of reinstatement can be such that it's kind of, it could be like theoretical, but nevertheless useful when deployed?
Well, the statutory language is the equipment is necessary because no reasonable alternative exists to achieve the same objective. I'm not saying it's not a burden they can overcome.
Yep.
But it is something that they actually have to address.
Right, so they would have to make an argument as to why they still think this is worthwhile, even if they haven't used it recently.
Yeah, if they're doing
Yep.
it, I think correctly, they would just say, no reasonable alternative exists because whatever.
Yep.
Well, I also think that the PAB at this point is saying that, we're not convinced at this point that it is necessary, given the rare instances it's been used in the past. And so the board questions whether reinstatement meaningfully that enhances public safety. And I think that paragraph really encapsulates what some of us anyway.
Sure.
So I think we should take a vote, and it just may be that we have somebody vote no at this point. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll restate the motion. The motion was to approve the draft letter with amendments incorporating this, or motion to approve the letter with amendments incorporating the suggested changes and to delegate the chair and vice chair to implement those suggested changes. It was moved by Board Member Calavita, seconded by Board Member Leftwich. I'll start with the roll call vote. Board Member Calavita.
Yes.
Board Member Leftwich.
Yes.
Board Member Bozo Turco.
No.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah.
And Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
The motion carries 4 votes in favor, 1 against. Okay.
Okay. Let's go to, we moved our agenda around, so we're gonna go to 9G, which is now 9C, which is the discussion and action on proposed, updated proposal for the rescission and replacement of the police equipment and community safety ordinance being considered by council. I believe my draft letter, is in the supplemental packet, and since writing the draft letter, I had a discussion with a couple council members, and also I received, letter from Donald and Poland, and I do think that there are some things to rework in this letter, especially because, admittedly, I wrote this at 2 a.m. and I just reading it again in the morning, I was not extremely happy with the way that I phrased things. So I think one thing that could be made clearer, which I'm now kind of revising the letter that I wrote, is sort of what we submitted to the Public Safety Committee meeting, is a clear delineation of what is the differences between state law and Berkeley requirements. I think that the Public Safety Committee really benefited from that, and I think that sort of in the style that Vice Chair Wilson's last letter, that would be like a section header in the letter. That's kind of what you first thought. The second thing that I had like a thought about, or a revision to my own letter, was it doesn't, as part of that first section, but maybe a second section, is we don't, I don't specifically explain that the use policy review process is something that should be retained in the header, because that process provides like a really clear administrative and legislative, it provides clear legislative purpose, and also it provides clear administrative process for how we should be reviewing use policies, and the state law doesn't necessarily do that. So I think that that's worth retaining. And I think the last thing really is that I think that we should, I didn't have access to the Word document of the proposed ordinance, and I think that we should just provide a red line itself of the ordinance as opposed to these kind of inline revisions. So it would be more readable, honestly. But those are the three things that there are some other things, but I can leave it there and we can circle back to the other things. I have smaller things, but those are the really big things.
I had a comment. It sounds like you're going to be redoing this anyway, but one other thing I wanted to highlight that confused me and concerned me was that you propose a new definition of deployment on page 5 of the supplemental packet. And I was confused by that because the ordinance already, it looks to me like this proposal would weaken the definition. I mean, there's already a definition in the ordinance, unless I'm looking at the wrong place, because I do find all this confusing. But it says, except as provided below, deployed means to utilize or employ equipment for a deliberate purpose in the presence of members of the public during management or control of crowds, during any special response team deployment, or to effect some response from members of the public during any other operation or critical response. Deployed shall not mean an officer merely wearing a piece of equipment on their belt or elsewhere on their person. And then the letter referenced the use of force definition, saying that the goal was to make them similar. But when I look at the use of force policy, I didn't see a specific definition of deployment. But when it comes to reporting levels, level 2 is when the officer's use of force was limited to the following: the firearm drawn from the holster or otherwise deployed during an interaction with an individual and or pointed at an individual. And then they say, for purpose of the section, interaction shall be defined as a situation in which an individual could reasonably believe the deployment and or pointing and firing could be an attempt to gain compliance. But in this proposed definition, it says it shall mean any instance in which military equipment was pointed or aimed at an individual and where an individual present would have reasonably believed that the use of military equipment was probable. Deployment shall not include the transport or wearing of military equipment. So to me, that is not desirable because it injects a subjective component about what the reasonable belief of someone, whereas in the use of force, it's enough if someone just points the weapon at a person, regardless of whether that person, has a reasonable belief that use of the equipment was probable. So again, I found this confusing, and maybe I'm looking at the wrong things, but it seemed to me, I guess I wasn't sure that this was an improvement, and it seemed kind of inconsistent with the use of force policy and the current ordinance.
Thank you. Yeah. I think one thing that we discussed with the department was there is currently a difference between the use of force policies definition of deployment and the ordinances report and the ordinances definition, so that there's 2 different.
I didn't see a definition of deployment in the use of force policy.
The department's understanding of the definition of deployment, which is basically what you read about pointing, and how they analyze it when it comes to identifying reporting instances. So right now they're analyzing reportable deployments one way, and then they analyze it a different way for the ordinance. And so the goal really is just to have the ordinance's definition of deployment be consistent with the department's definition of what a reportable deployment is. I think the and is maybe misleading because I also actually don't think that their definition requires the and. It's kind of an or, because
I thought we heard public comment that said that there was agreement that this was also confusing as written in the letter, and that there is a statutory definition of deployment.
There's not a statutory as in like California state law. There's the one that board member Lethwich read in the ordinance, which is about affecting some response from members in order to gain during an operation or or critical response, or to affect some response from members of the public during any other operation or critical response.
But it was or pointed, so you don't, pointing it is enough under the use of force.
Yes, so I think having it be or would make it consistent with the use of force
Yeah,
policy.
so we did struggle with this, and in drafting use of force policy, it was a big source of discussion. So I really wouldn't want us to say, and you have to look at the
Yeah,
expectation or, you know.
The goal, because right now the Berkeley's municipal code requires them to do something additional beyond what they're doing for the use of force policy reporting. And we're trying to eliminate that duplicative reporting review, duplicative review process.
Well, I agree, the concept should be the same throughout
Yeah.
different policies and ordinances.
But the definition of deployment in the ordinance is slightly broader than this. It doesn't require that it be aimed. It has to be utilized in a way that's meant to be intimidating. It doesn't, it's not only about aiming, it would be about. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know, so like that's, if you were to say or, then it would capture those instances, like, because for example, with a baton strike, that's what, like, you're not aiming a baton really, you would be like lifting it,
Right.
or
swinging your rifle in such a way that it's meant to be intimidating.
yeah, so if you were to say or, if you say or, it would capture
It
that.
would capture that, if that's what we want to do, I would think that would be preferable. But that's not what the department has been using, are you saying?
They have, I mean, like, we have a lieutenant codes here,
Because that's in the ordinance, I think.
I mean, lieutenant codes, you know that, if you were to pull out and, when would you report a deployment of a weapon, like, under, if you're understanding the use of force policy?
But, well, I mean, my personal understanding would be if basically if it was used in a manner like you guys mentioned, in a manner that would affect the response, so.
Okay.
But, you know, I understand your discussion that for the two different, because there's different meanings and deployment, I guess, when it comes to like what's reported under the ordinance.
Yeah.
Versus what would be considered when we're like use force for the word.
Yeah.
Oh, and maybe we can use those words, that lieutenant used, that it's used in a way to affect the response.
Well, that's what the ordinance says.
Well, but what if you don't, if it's pointed, it could be pointed at somebody, I mean, again, if you have an or, it could be pointed at someone they don't see it. It's still deployed.
Either way.
And I think this came up because wasn't this around People's Park that there was
Yes.
a vehicle with that was open so people could see it with officers with assault weapons, right? I just remember this discussion.
Of assault weapons. Yeah.
Yeah, was that a deployment and the intent was to make the public aware. But they weren't pointing at anybody. So anyway, this is just a kind of a complicated issue, so we just need to be very careful with that.
I think the general recommendation that we might agree on is that we should have them be aligned with the use of force policy reporting. And the ordinance required reporting.
It should be similar, but it should not require an analysis of the subjective beliefs of members of the public. In order for there to be a deployment.
Yeah, so we say pointer aimed or to affect some response from members of the public. I mean, that doesn't require any sort of subjective evaluation.
I guess I'm really struggling with how this material is presented to us. It's voluminous pages, many different drafts, memos, then supplementals. So, I mean, that's just like, as a practical matter, I think we need to get a better way of presenting material to us. Because what I would have really benefited from is some very brief analysis of this most recent item that council members Humbert and O'Keefe are putting forward to the council. So, and how what they're proposing addresses or does not address the issues that we raised in our letter last year. There was a table, we identified these various issues. So it's really hard when, like, or I was to speak for myself, trying to do that all in my head. So
my letter tries to do that.
yeah, but it doesn't exactly,
Yeah.
because like the real way to do it, I think, is take the table. Here's the proposed, what's going to the council. This was not addressed. And the way I view it, just when I'm trying to do this on my own, they didn't address any of it. The only thing they've done is say there will be some limited reportable deployments. And they very narrowly define deployment, and the circumstance has to only do with First Amendment activity. So then I think it just helps, like, put a clear, organized container around. Here's what we said before. This is the draft we've reviewed. It doesn't do any of these things. It kind of brings in deployment. And then I think we have to decide where to go. My concern with where this conversation is going is it's kind of ignoring the reality of this is what's going to council next week, and going back to what we already said that they ignored. Like, we already said, we want you to retain reporting on deployment. They already basically said, no, this is what they're doing. So now
They haven't said that.
well, this is the proposal going to council, as far as I understand it. So then I think we should be responding to this, and I don't think it really makes sense for us to just go back to our position before. That's me personally. But I just am struggling, and this is really like a comment for staff. I know there's not a lot of staff, but there's several items on this agenda where we just have reams and reams of memos and things from 5 years ago and all this stuff. And there's no staff and brief analysis to say, here's what the current live issue is. Here's what you need to discuss today. Here's what we think you should do to help frame how we're working. So I find it just really challenging. That's explanatory, but my ask, I guess, is it's a 6 days from this council anyway. I'm not comfortable going back and saying you should report on all deployments consistent with the ordinance, because I don't think they're gonna do that. We've already said it.
That's not what it says. Yeah.
That's what we said before, but now you're introducing, like, and I also don't think it makes sense to introduce, like, yet a new definition of deployment. That doesn't make sense either.
We're addressing the issues that open problems that initial were concerns, which is not what we did in our initial letter. Our initial letter was talking about retaining the ordinance, and now we're addressing the concern the department raised, which is that there is 2 separate review processes when it comes to the reporting of deployments. And they tried to include a definition of deployments that nobody at the Public Safety Committee wanted. Because the public safety, the members of the Public Safety, 2 of them at least, wanted to retain the reporting of deployments. But they also didn't want to create an additional type of reporting that required a different definition. And so that is why this is an attempt to respond to their proposal and their concerns that were raised at the Public Safety Committee meeting. It's not saying it's not saying at all what we initially proposed, actually. At least on deployments, because we are addressing the concern that was raised at that meeting. But I hear you in terms of, like, the presentation and analyzing what was addressed and what wasn't addressed. Like, that's what I was trying to say at the very beginning, which is, like, needs to be in this letter as well.
But also, I think I'm even saying it more like it would be helpful for this when this item come to us, even if it's not in the letter, just to help us do our job as a board. That there is not enough, like, staff work about the items from my perspective. So it makes it hard for me to weigh in. I kind of feel on this one, like, I think what they want to do is make the department have one report that satisfies 84, 81 only, with these augmentations are very limited around deployment in these First Amendment situations. I think that's my understanding of this proposal. If we have room to advocate for something else and we think it's a good use of our time, I'm willing to do that, and I believe it should be expanded upon reporting of deployments. And I'm open to how you want to craft your letter to do that. You're like very immersed in these issues, and that's my feedback, and I'm willing to kind of give you the authority to write this letter. That's my feedback of what I would focus on as well.
There are two parts beyond deployments that are also addressed, or that I'm trying to address. One is about the way that use policies are presented to the board. Under the proposal, Councilmember Humbert's proposal, use policies are not presented to the board on the same timeline that they're currently presented, and there's no requirement that the board provide specific recommendations to council. Whereas in the current ordinance there is, and that there's no like process laid out in the state law either. And so that's one thing that I was recommending we retain as well.
Well, their proposed ordinance says May, right? And it says 30 days before it goes to the council, it's gonna come to us, and we may weigh in on it, and the council may give us more time to review. Isn't that their proposal?
Yes, although it doesn't provide us with the standards of review that the current ordinance does. And that also is helpful. But I also like I think we've run into the issue many times where it's if we are considering an item 30 days before the council finally votes on it, it's not enough time for us to review. Instead, we've been like, for example, we have the drone policy where they're required to submit it to us and then it goes back to council. That system is basically what the controlled equipment ordinance does. And that's the one that there hasn't been an issue with it. No one has an issue with the way use policies are presented to the board. No one has raised an issue with that. And they're trying to change it. And so I'm trying to point that out to them. Like the department hasn't raised an issue with the way use policies are presented to the board. Even the presentation of the material itself, there's no issue with that. So it doesn't make sense to me why they would change that in their proposal.
Okay, and what's the third issue?
It's about our review of not use policies, but the report itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like this, that is a similar argument. I mean, like the administratability argument about the ways that the department writes the report has nothing to do with our ability to review it, really. So like that element that we addressed in our letter to the council is also still not addressed in this. I mean, like the line that I drew was that, you know, we appreciate, I mean, the letter doesn't like draw, like it says very clearly that we benefit from more than the time that is given to us in this proposed division. And our experience has basically borne that out. And we appreciate the opportunity to have more time. But that won't be sufficient, you know, in many of these circumstances.
Are you saying that the ordinance currently requires us to do it?
It does require us to do this right now. We can
Because it says the PAB is then, this is your letter, the PAB is then authorized to review the proposed use policies.
The use policies, yes.
So authorized doesn't mean we're required, but are you saying we're required to?
We're required to review the annual report.
But not the use policy.
It doesn't have the same shall.
Okay. And the Humbert proposal eliminates the requirement for us to review either the use policies or the annual report.
Right.
It makes it discretionary.
Yes, and it also doesn't explain what our review entails. It just says.
But we have that problem currently, right? Because that's where we came up against, like, are we reviewing every single deployment? Are we reviewing every single use case? Are we requesting buying more camera footage, all of that?
That was clarified by city attorney. Subsequently. But the standard about what standard we're applying to our review, that is in the ordinance.
Okay.
Our review is based on the report. Like that was it.
Could I ask so this is coming up on Tuesday,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And when is the latest we can get our letter in? For it to be considered?
This Friday. They have to do a second reading, but the second reading is meant to approve whatever changes are made on the bias on Tuesday.
Okay, well, so I don't think we can solve these various issues here at the meeting, but I'm wondering if the chair and vice chair would be willing to work together in the next 48 hours to get, I mean, I think you have the basics here of what our concerns are. And this is the first time I'm seeing it, but I would be happy to delegate the responsibility to the chair and the vice chair so that we can get something in time for council to consider it. Is that something you can do?
I mean, it's something that I can do, but I need to be clear about what the board's recommendations are and what the concerns are and how they're being addressed. Yeah, I mean, it's something I can do, but it's something that we have to be clear on, because my proposal in this letter, just to be clear for the board, is to retain the use policy referral process to the PAB, to retain the annual report referral process to the PAB, and then to agree to the changes about aligning the definitions with state law, and to make clearer in the ordinance what the additional augmented Berkeley standards are for reporting of deployments and reporting of automatic rifles.
So to draw that from the ordinance. To use what's in the ordinance. To make sure that that's in the proposal. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not understanding.
They're gonna rescind the ordinance
And replace it.
But you're suggesting that there are certain
Yes,
things.
to draw from, yes, yes.
Well, I would make the motion that I agree with those things, those are, like. Basic. I think our original letter to the Public Safety Committee was that we oppose the rescission of the ordinance.
Yeah.
So now what we're trying to do is, do the best we can, given what's going forward. And I would make the motion that we delegate to the chair and working possibly with the vice chair to finalize this letter, including some of the edits that were proposed earlier by Mr. Lindsay Coleman.
Okay, I would just say for this one, I don't know, I'm happy to work on it with you if you need support, but I trust you. I would just be comfortable delegating to the chair because I am not with the weeds on these. I'm okay with these points you've made. I would only offer that I think last year we articulated major concerns about the lack of specificity around what our review of that report would entail. And even getting the clarification from the city attorney's office, basically that we couldn't request any supplemental information, did not provide the requisite clarity around exactly what our review is going to entail. So I just think it's a bit ironic that now our position is we want to keep this thing that we have, albeit not perfect, and that's fine. Not perfect, but we'd rather keep it than get rid of it altogether. I guess fine to say that, but it's just I don't think the ordinance as it stands is a model of clarity around our review of these materials. That's all I'm saying. But I'm comfortable delegating to you making the 3 points.
4 points. 3 points, yeah. Well, 4 points really. The fourth would be augmenting, the third would be aligning with state law definitions to the extent.
Oh, okay, the
Yeah.
definitions, yeah.
Okay. There was a motion, but I just also want to address, some of the comments, the public comments about, the letter. Two things. One is that the way that the ordinance is written, this is in response to the questioning of the way that the ordinance ties definitions and reporting requirements to use of force policy. The way that the proposed ordinance is written makes it such that it requires reporting to the extent that it's required in policy 300. But as we all know, policy 300 could be changed at any time. And so what we should be doing is requiring reporting and requiring that reporting to be reflected in 300, not tying the reporting requirement to whatever's in 300 that can be changed at any time. So that's really the purpose of what I'm saying. And the way that it's written is like really poor because it says less lethal weapons which fall outside the definitions in chapter 12.8 but are subject to the reporting requirements established by policy 300 must continue to be reported in a manner consistent with policy 300 or any successor policy. So what that's saying is that if the policy changes, all that's required is for it to be reported consistent with whatever way the department changes that policy. That's not what we're recommending. You know, we're recommending that less lethal weapons be included in the definition of military equipment. And so that's something that should be included in the ordinance, not tying it to whatever, you know, the current policy is. So I just thought it was poor policy writing on the part of, you know, Councilmember Humbert's office, honestly, that I thought needed to be pointed out. I mean, I can make the point clear, but I think the point is still valid.
One other thing that jumped out at me was you have the definition, you say that the definition should include automatic rifles, which are machine guns. And I'm immediately thinking, I don't think the department uses fully automatic weapons. I mean, maybe the SWAT team does. And Lieutenant, I don't know if you can weigh in on that.
Don't know 100%, yeah, we got to come back.
Okay. And so I'm just wondering why you put that in there, because certainly they use semi-automatic.
I think that we had a public comment to that effect as well, right?
Yes.
Right.
So is the public comment and your comment that we should just then not include that?
Yeah, unless there's some compelling reason to include it, but it just jumped out at me. It's like, well, why do we have that in there? But I'm not 100% clear.
Okay, so I think we don't need to include less lethal weapons because AB 48.1 includes less lethal weapons as well. But it doesn't include automatic rifles. But you're just saying that Berkeley doesn't use automatic rifles.
I don't think so, but it's possible, I guess, that the SWAT team could, but certainly police departments don't use machine guns, which is basically what that is. I mean, don't routinely.
Yeah.
So you might just look into it.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion on the?
I guess
Yes, I made
And I'm gonna strike any reference to the vice chair and just delegate to the chair, and I will second the motion. If you take. Okay.
So with the amendment, the motion is motion for the chair to draft and send a letter to council. With the edits discussed during today's presentation. Is that accurate, Board Member Callahan?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll now proceed to the roll call vote. Board Member Calavita,
Yes.
Board Member Lethbridge.
Yeah.
Board Member Boswell Turco,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah.
And Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
The motion carries 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay.
Okay. Thanks everyone for that discussion. Sorry, my letter was messy. But I agree with comment about having good write-up before to help guide the discussion. So hopefully we can do that in the future. Let's go to agenda item C, which is the presentation of the corresponding place work plan and the calendar events. Director?
Yes, and I will make a full presentation on some light remarks to part of the reason we're holding it, is just making sure that the information and the study through the strategic plan session the board had is fully concretized before we sort of roll out our plan. And even I think from today's conversation, it showed also where we want to make sure we have symmetry with the board. There's like expectations that our office provides more support on these matters, and we're happy to do so. So I don't want to roll out a work plan that may or may not be in alignment with what the PAB wants to do. I would say though, it's helpful though when we get a proactive request, and it's clearly a board request as opposed to like an individual board member expectation. So then that way we have synergy and we understand what we all need to do, especially now when we have scarce resources. So again, I'll do a full presentation once we get a better assessment, understanding what the plan from the strategic planning session were, and we'll be moving forward.
I'm sorry, is there a written item for this?
No, I was stating that I was withholding the full
Okay,
presentation and making a few remarks.
Yeah. Is that it then?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Ricky. Let's go to, we struck, we tabled 9D for another meeting, and we're gonna go now to 9E, discussion and action on the adoption of updated draft of the PAB policy manual. We gave feedback from and after the 2025 PAB meeting. Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah, I hope it's self-explanatory. The red line version should reflect the changes that were made pursuant to the feedback received at and subsequent to the meeting. If the board agrees with these changes, I will then work with the design team to get this properly kind of formatted, edited, and to check all of the hyperlinks. So know that that will be happening at a subsequent date.
I have lots of comments.
Again, I incorporated all of yours.
And I can go through them kind of quickly, and then I can just give you my hard copy, but I'm sure the table of contents will be updated, but it still refers to it.
Yeah, it's an auto thing. I can't update it.
Okay.
I can't update it on its own.
Okay. So on page 47 of our packet, responsibility of board members. The second bullet says participating in all board meetings and meetings of assigned board committees. And I think it would be better to say that this is under responsibilities of board members.
Mm-hmm.
Participating in all board meetings and serving on board subcommittees. And I have another comment later on about that, just because it's kind of passive. And I think it's an affirmative obligations of board members to serve on board subcommittees. And this, just as if assigned. And then on the next page, and we probably already discussed this too, conflicts of interest. The source is the charter, but we've spent a lot of time in the regulation subcommittee on this topic and a process. And so this will need to be changed. And so maybe it would be better, to the extent that the source for some of this is the interim regs. I mean, if it's just the charter, my point is just that this is going to be changed because we spent a ton of time outlining very specific procedures.
Yeah, but we're a long way away from getting those adopted. So because
right, so if this is totally from the charter, but if it's from the interim regs, elsewhere the interim regs is referenced as the authority.
Okay, I will make a note
Just
to align with the interim regs. I think I did that, but didn't choose the reference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then on page 49 of the packet, board subcommittees. It's kind of what I was referencing before about serving on board subcommittees. It says the chair may appoint members of the board to serve as members of subcommittees subject to approval. The chair should solicit interest from board members. And I was thinking maybe it would be helpful to say the chair may appoint members of the board to serve as members of subcommittees subject to the approval of the PAB and seek to ensure that board members serve on at least one active subcommittee or something to that extent, or encourage board members to serve, so that there's some thought about equal distribution of work, that it isn't just the, you know, the board member asking who's interested. It's like, well, everybody should be, you know, sharing the burden. There's reference to the board secretary throughout this, and I don't know who that.
The director.
The director.
That's in the, that's charter language.
It's also in the commissioner's manual.
I'm just wondering if we should clarify that
Okay.
somewhere.
Mhm.
You know, you can just check that. On the page 52 at the bottom, voting on motions, it talks about remote participation at a properly noticed address, but that's no longer the law. The Brown Act was amended so that people who are participating remotely, if they qualify, they don't need to give out their
Okay.
home address. Well, very minor things like missing of the DNA, but I can just give you that. More reference to the interim regs needing to be changed. Okay, on the,
What do you mean needing to be changed? You mean when new regs?
yeah, and I'll just give you this and point it out. Just
Okay.
get the same issue. So on page 64 of the packet, which is 24 of this manual, we talk about the process for policy reviews. And the second paragraph says, once the board votes to initiate a policy review, the following process will generally apply. And then it says it goes to the policy committee who can make assignment options. And the last one is review not recommended. That just seems a little inconsistent to me. If the board has said, we need a policy review, and then the policy committee is saying review not recommended. And I don't know, I don't know if there was a separate policy procedure that maybe you had done, Vice Chair, or where this came up before, but.
Yeah, this has come before the board before, but I would just say that the policy committee, there may be all sorts of reasons. You might say, oh, we just did that 6 months ago. There's new members of the board, so you didn't know that, or oh, that's on our work plan for a year from now. We have to do that next year anyway, so we shouldn't review it now. You know, so I think you may recommend that it not happen.
Okay, I'm just, but that would seem surprising though if the board voted to initiate it. You'd think that if there was some issue, but maybe they weren't aware of it then. The policy committee didn't discover it until.
And as you know, we don't work up these items before we take them on. We just kind of get a complaint to talk about it, then we decide like, yeah, let's look into it. So, right.
And then the last comment I have is on page 69 of the packet, 29 of the draft. Subcommittee structure says, this is the commendation subcommittee, is composed of 2 to 3 board members and 2 to 3 public members. And I just don't think we want to set that in stone because, you know, it may be difficult to find public members. We might not have time. So it could be something like public members may participate as outlined in, you know, and cross-reference the other section or something. But I don't want us to mandate that there has to be 2 to 3.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we should actually strike that bullet.
Yeah.
Because we don't say it anywhere else.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, that's it, thanks.
I have just a couple of things.
Okay.
So on the first page, which is page 40 of our packet, public comment policy. I would be opposed to limiting public comment to a single period at the beginning of each meeting, because currently we have it at the beginning and the end, and I see no reason to strike the end. Public comment, sometimes people have things to say about what's happened at the meeting. And I don't know where that came from, especially because on page 67 of the packet, it says the opposite. It says public comment will be at the beginning and then.
The memo on page 40 is the memo that was submitted to you in November when this item first came before you.
Really?
Yeah, so it's, if you look on page 40.
40 of what?
Sorry, 40 of the packet, it says this memorandum was originally presented at the December 3rd, 2025 PAB special meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that, remember, I proposed that and sort of limiting public comment and you all didn't like that.
Oh,
So this,
okay.
so the updated version, yeah, removes that.
Yeah. Okay, now there is a typo on page 53. It says something about, at the very last sentence, the very last line. The policy can be found in appendix E, it's actually appendix D.
Okay.
That's all. I think that's all. Yes.
Any other comments?
But I think this is gonna be very helpful, so thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh, is it note about release date or I just?
That's the person who's format.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I hired my old fabulous assistant to
Oh, Louisa?
help me.
Was that, I
create-
wondered who that was?
That's who Louisa is. Yes, she knows how to help get this kind of thing into shape.
That's really good. Any other comments?
So here's the, sorry.
I just want to say before you make a motion that thank you so much for doing this. There's a lot of really good work and I think it would be very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like going forward, it can only get better and it'll be easier to modify. So what I'm gonna ask for is the board to delegate authority to me as the chair, working with the director to finalize this. So we have to incorporate any edits you all send me that are, Julie, you said you have more typos or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned, it needs to get copy edited and hyperlinks checked, etc. And all the linking of the table of comments, that kind of thing needs to be done. I also think we need to send it to the city attorney's office just to see if they want to take a look at it. So there's a number of steps and I'd just like to be able to move those forward without having to come back to the PAB. Okay, so do you have that motion?
I took some quick notes, so let's see if it conveyed it. So the motion to delegate the authority to the chair, vice chair, and the director to incorporate the changes and finalize the document, including the next steps of sending it to the city attorney's office for legal review.
Second.
And that second was for Board Member Calavita. I'll go with the roll call vote. Board Member Calavita.
Yes.
Board Member Leftwich.
Yes.
Board Member Bosworth-Furco.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson.
Yeah.
And Chair Cayetano.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tucker. We're gonna go now to 9H, which is a recap of PAB's 2026 strategic planning session. Director. 9H.
I thought we weren't doing that tonight.
I don't see that on the agenda.
9F.
Oh. No, right, 9H, right?
Well, we still have.
Oh, 9F, I'm sorry.
Oh,
But we're at
that version of it might still have, but.
Oh, okay.
Which is the last one's just.
Okay, 9F, which is the discussion action on the annual review of the support policy. Director.
Okay, so in the last meeting, the board or asked us to follow up with the police department to get a better understanding of the timeline. And where they were with their draft, we were able to do that, we got the information today, I'll hand it over to our policy analyst to give us the quick update without the board.
Yes,
From the BPD.
as the director noted at the last meeting, the board requested that we reach out to BPD to get an understanding on one of the timeline, and two, a version of the policy that essentially had all the proposed changes incorporated to make it easier for the board's review. Sergeant Rafferty provided me with the draft copy, which printout copies form will be circulating with the board, making public as part of our minutes. And regarding the timeline, we don't have a specific timeline. However, the department did communicate that as part of this process, they quote, look forward to engaging in constructive discussions with the subcommittee to provide clarity on our thought process and the rationale underlying the proposed changes. Our objective is to proceed towards implementing it in a timely manner. However, we prefer not to establish specific benchmarks at this point, while recognizing the importance of maintaining a focused and efficient dialogue. So with that said, there isn't an exactly clear timeline. I think we're in agreement in the sense that we want to process this as soon as possible, while doing the work necessary to make sure that we propose a well-drafted proposal for this policy. So with that said, those were the two responses to the board's questions that we had. As part of the discussion at the last meeting, and sort of why we're bringing it back again, this council item was in terms of how the policy would be proposed, whether or revised in collaboration with the BPD, whether we would be doing that through policy subcommittee, assigning a board member, or establishing a new subcommittee altogether to take on that review as the board liaison before bringing back a revised version of it. So that's the ask for today, unless the director has any comments, which I'll provide too. But it's just sort of giving the next steps, how the board wants to proceed, so that we could start facilitating that communication with BPD.
And I'm sorry, I missed it. The version we have, the December 2025 version, is their final version?
It's their most up-to-date version.
And do they anticipate making further changes or only working with us?
So what was communicated to me was that the attachment that we provided is the most recent draft of the policy, and that the BP is continuing to edit as part of their process, and as they lead up to the eventual publication. But the idea is that the changes will come with the board as well, with board feedback. So this is sort of the baseline and to start the initial conversations.
Okay.
Great. Are there any board member comments? Don't mind just referring this to the policy subcommittee just to hear what the department has to say. And so that we have it going somewhere instead of just so I don't mind delegating the continued communication about use of force policy to the policy subcommittee.
Which is,
Technically, it's me and board member Lethbridge. So I don't mind doing that, as in terms of like where we're at right now.
And the idea would be that you would,
I mean, the department just said like, we want to talk with you about it, and they can't be talking with the full board right now, so.
yeah,
That's kind of just the idea.
I think that's a great.
So that's a motion.
Well, yeah, it's a motion.
Okay.
We just say refer the matters for policy subcommittee.
Okay. So on the motion to refer the matter to the policy subcommittee, motion by Chair Cayetano, seconded by Board Member Calavita. Board Member Calavita,
Yes.
Board Member Leftwich.
Yes.
Board Member Bezos.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wilson
Yeah.
and Chair Gaetano.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, on my agenda. It says recap of the strategic plan. Was that on our agenda?
Yeah, we apologize for that. The packet from the physical copies that got mailed out to you excluded that item. But on the notice agenda, we have item 9H, which is the recap of the PAB's 2026 strategic planning session.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought in the email to us, you indicated it wasn't gonna be presented. Or at least the goals. Yeah, is there, is
In
the
terms of the
director recapping this or?
We can provide a light recap, we typically have put this on the agenda following it, this time there was time, so we didn't. Because for the holiday, we didn't have the time to do a full recap, we have a verbal report out and just give out the report, you have any impressions, or we could table it for next meeting.
What's the line, did you line recap?
Sure.
I could, who does this come from? This list of someone,
That was Vice Chair Wilson.
oh, right, okay.
Yeah, but we didn't include it in the packet, right? Right, it was emailed to us, then in the email it said, but we're not gonna talk about it, because I was surprised Steve had been emailed. Cause I thought maybe there'd be some, just work on it a little bit.
Yeah, we gave board members homework about coming back to not this meeting, but the next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
With goals and that sort of.
Okay, so
yeah.
that'll be your report,
That
okay,
is,
great.
yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes.
Why you guys?
Sure, so we met over the weekend, at the facility, the board had the, annual retreat work session where they go over the plans. One of the things that the board has done, consistently in the last few years is to really, look at what's mandated, what's permissive, and try to design a work plan based on the resources. And there are also, in this particular session, there was a lot of reflection on what went well, where are areas of improvement, where in areas where the staff can also support and division of labors. Also provide some good feedback, how to organize and put some information on the annual report regarding metrics and recommendations, so that's something we're actively doing on our end. We had a robust conversation, I think, about community engagement, also social media being a stated goal. And we had talked about what ways we can strategize to reach out to community members, but also the council members, to have more synergy with them and make the proposals being presented to them stronger than they had in previous iteration, previous times. We'll start it there.
Thanks, Doctor. Are there any other board member comments at this time? Thanks, Doctor, for facilitating it. I know that it's not ideal coming on a Saturday on a long weekend, and thank you to the staff members who were there. I really appreciate you being there, and I appreciate your time and commitment to the board. So, okay. With that, we'll go to agenda item 10, public comment.
Okay, as a reminder, speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but may be allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time, except confidential personnel matters. We usually start with the physically present speakers, but seeing that there are currently no speakers present, I'll now go on to our virtual attendees. At this time, if you would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand icon or press *9 if you're calling in. Chair, at this time, we have no hands raised by members of the public.
Okay. That we will go to closed session agenda item 11. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Audio and visual recording will now be paused. We'll resume once the board returns from closed. Chair, we are back in open session.
Welcome back. The board heard updates on PAB's regulations and took action on three items, other items, complaints in closed session. That will be, and those motions will be reflected in the minutes. With that, we'll go to agenda item, I believe, 13, which is motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Great. Okay, thank you, everyone.